Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you're doing well. Time management. Two very important things in life. You know, that time is one of, I'd contend, the most valuable thing that we have. It's not our money, it's our time, right? Time makes money. Money can't make time. Sounds about right, right? Anyway, so what does time have to do with your training in Jiu-Jitsu? Everything, right? You think to yourself, man, if I just had more time, I could train more. Or if I just started a few years sooner, then I could be further along than I ultimately end up, right? We've talked about videos, or Master Dave Kama, by the way, has talked in videos about being too old to earn a black belt. Now, is that true for everyone? No. But if you are old, like me, 50s, right? No, older than that. You know, let's say you started jiu-jitsu in your 70s. 10 years later, you're in your 80s, still in great health. But you've been doing jiu-jitsu for 10 years and you're wondering why you haven't reached the pinnacle, the ultimate goal of earning your black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Well, the reason is because your body can't do between the ages of 70 and 80 what it did between the ages of 20 and 30. It just can't. Or between the ages of 15 and 25, right? 10 years for somebody younger is very different than 10 years for somebody much older, especially in jiu-jitsu. Now, there are advantages to being older, right? For instance, me in my 50s, I think I've lived through enough to have enough wisdom to be able to share to people and to make it help them in their lives. You know, and that's one of the things, you know, 32, 33 years of jiu-jitsu combined with, you know, the age, you know, and the life experience that I have. I think I've figured out how to put the two together and how to help someone who is maybe professionally sound, but just young in jiu-jitsu, you know, how to have them, you know, draw the parallels to put the two together. But time is so tricky sometimes because, you know, let's say you started at age 40, but you're very healthy, you're strong, you're agile, you're flexible, your mind is very sharp. Then you putting the minimum 10 years or so to earn your black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, provided that's what you wanted, you could do it by age 50. But let's say the same you at age 50, trying to do the same thing from 50 to 60, a little more difficult, right? Versus if you started at 30 and went to 40, then that 10-year time frame for that age actually made it to where at 40, you were a better black belt than you were at 50, right? Because of the age difference. You know, one of the things that I always tell my students is this. Given your life, maybe you were an athlete in a past life, maybe you played sports all throughout your childhood, and you maybe even played college ball, whatever sport that was, and you remember those days when you were at your top physically, and your reflexes were fast. But as you get older, it's not quite as fast. Now, do you need fast reflexes to be successful in jiu-jitsu? No, it helps, but you don't need it. Just like, do you need to have gymnast flexibility to be very good in jiu-jitsu? Nope. Nope. It helps, but you don't need it. But the time that you need to put into it greatly increases the older you get, because it's like trying to learn a new skill, which jiu-jitsu is. The older you get, the more time you need to put in. Why do you think the best in the world in jiu-jitsu, or in any sport for that matter, started off very young? It's just because of the time in their lives when they're put into it. You know, those of us, not me, those of us who are fortunate enough to have parents put them into jiu-jitsu at a young age because they wanted their kids to learn self-defense, by the time they're teenagers, late teens, and at the end of high school, they're usually pretty spectacular at the art. And if they continue on into their 20s, they're going to be black belts, and they're going to be spectacular black belts. All because of time. Now, for those of us who are older and we start jiu-jitsu, we need to find a way to make the most efficient use of our time, because by the time you get older, you have commitments. You have commitments to families, to your family, to a career, which takes up your time. Plus, you need to get your sleep, and you need to make sure you have quality time for yourself and for others. And now you got to fit jiu-jitsu in there somewhere, right? So I contend that if you can train with a time-sensitive system, one that allows you to make the most of every minute you're training, then that is the best way to become good quickly. Now, if you have that as a young person, even better. But if you don't, it's even more important that you have that type of mindset to where when you're training, you're making sure that you're making a stride today that you didn't make yesterday. And tomorrow, you're going to take a stride that you didn't take today. Now, a lot of it has to do with what you're learning and how you learn it. I've done many videos on this particular subject, and it has gone through a number of different titles. You know, how to make yourself better, faster in jiu-jitsu, how to make yourself better, faster in jiu-jitsu part 2, right? Or the importance of a curriculum, or the importance of a linear methodology. You know, I've gone through so many. Or here's one that I don't know if I've covered. Oh, I did cover it actually in a video, probably about less than a year ago. Had to do with, you need to choose your instructor, right? Because let's say you're at a school that's a big school and they've got 10 different black belts that teach classes. If the school is not particularly stringent on their curriculum and their methodology, then whatever class time you attend, you're going to get a different experience. And the more you can get one experience or a continuation of one experience in a school, the faster you will learn, right? If one black belt is telling you to use guard pass A, and another is telling you use guard pass B, and another telling you guard pass C and D, and so on and so forth, all different guard passes, right? If you have so many instructors teaching you, you will never get good, right? There's an interview I watched. It was by another YouTuber named Stephen Kesting, right? Shout out to him. Very, very good set of videos and interviews that he's done over the years. Well, one of his interviews was with the famous black belt, Vito Ribeiro, goes by the nickname Shaolin. And one of the questions that Stefan asked him, if I recall correctly, I watched this video probably 10, 15 years ago, a long time ago. But he'd asked Shaolin, hey, look, Shaolin, you know, you pass everybody's guarding competition, right? What are the guard passes? What are your favorite guard passes that you use that are the most effective in doing what you're looking to do, which is pass the guard? Shaolin said, I only do one guard pass. And, you know, like in disbelief, you know, like one guard pass? He goes, yeah, one guard pass. And he says, why do you use only one guard pass? And he says, Shaolin says, because when I was a white belt, my professor told me, this is the pass you're going to use. And this is the only pass you're going to use. Just gave him one guard pass. Probably can do it left and right. You know, it's not two guard passes, it's still one. Now, why is that important? Versus saying, you know what, it's best to know, you know, for me to teach you, me as an instructor, I know how to pass 20 different ways. Let me teach you all 20 different guard passes, right? Why is it better to go the Shaolin route versus the 20 route? The reason is because Shaolin knows every single thing that can possibly come up when he's trying to execute his one guard pass, right? It doesn't matter how he comes up to you, whether he's on his knees, on his feet, whether he comes in from the left, comes in from the right, whether you're on your side, on your back, you know, guard pass on the side, you know, you're defending yourself, or you're on your back. He is going to do the steps necessary to get to where he needs to get, his 0 point, before he starts his step 1 to passing guard. And every step of the way, anything you can do to possibly counter what he's doing, he knows, because he's spent the time to know it, right? It could be where he asks his professor, all right, I know this guard pass you're telling me to do, but you know, the way he is, he's not letting me get to the guard pass you say. Well, the professor says, okay, well, if his feet are here, then you need to go over here, and then look, it's right there. Okay, well, what if his feet are there? Well, then if his feet are there, you need to go here, and there it is, right? So what you're doing is you're always putting your opponent into your pass. It's not you going to him. It's him coming to you, but sometimes you need to move a certain way to get him to fall into your trap, and your trap is the pass that you always do. Whoever can make the other fight their game will win. Or at least they have the best chance of winning, right? It's all about probabilities and trying to increase your probabilities of winning. Now, you think of the time that it takes to learn that one pass and to make yourself undefeatable in that pass versus trying to make yourself undefeatable in 20 different passes. A lot more time would be required. So let's say you learn 20 different passes and there's 10 steps to every pass. That's 200 different steps you need to know for 20 different guard passes. On the other hand, if you just use one of them and you know 10 different steps, then you can get so good at every one of the steps of the 10 steps that you can now go into step 2, part A, part B, part C, part D, step 3, part A, part B, part C, part D, right? So you can learn all these sub-steps, which tightens up your game, right? One of the things that Elu Gracie had once said was that people would ask, you just showed me how to do that guard pass, and you showed me how to beat the guard pass, but yet every time I match up with you in that guard pass, you still beat me. Why is that? And it's because he says, at the white belt level, I teach you the steps 1 through 10 to pass. Well, a blue belt will have to learn the half steps, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, so on and so forth. And the blue belt will catch the white belt in the half steps that the white belt hasn't learned yet. Purple belt learns a quarter steps. So that's how a purple belt will catch a blue belt, is because the blue belt, as far as he's concerned, just knows 1.5, 2, 2.5. The purple belt knows 1 1/4, 1.5, 1 3/4, 2, 2 1/4, so forth. So they catch the blue belt in the quarter steps. We can even extend it out and say brown belts, 8 steps, black belts, 1/16 of a step, right? And really good black belts, 1/32 of a step. Spectacular ones, 1/64 of a step, right? So if you ask, why was Rickson better than everybody else? It's because he knew all the micro movements. Let's say he did 1/128th, right? And he could just get down and deep and he could see everything. So for you, you're moving fast. With him, it's like, you're moving slow. I see the spot right there and I'll just come right out, right? He was famous in his seminars for picking the biggest guy and telling him, come and give me a rear naked choke. Put it on, right? And he'd say, you got it? Yes. Are you sure you got it? Yep. Boom. And he'd get out. And you're like, what? Right? Or he'd say, he'd offer his arm. All right, set me up in an arm bar. Give you his arm. You got it? Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. All right, on go, we go. All right, go. Boom. And he'd get out. I remember thinking to myself, what's the secret? Right? What is the secret? How is he getting out? What is that secret technique he's doing that he's not showing us? That was the wrong question. The wrong question was, how many times has he done this and failed at it, to the point where now he's so sure that he will not fail that very few people can get it, even when he gives it to them. He feeds it to them. Here, take my neck. But he can still get out. That's time. That's a lot of time spent learning that one concept. Now, if it takes a lot of time to learn that one concept of how to feed your neck to somebody and still be able to get out safely, if it takes all that time, how are you going to dedicate your time to learning how to do some off-the-wall technique? We were just watching a tournament this past weekend. It was the Pan Ams out here in Garland, Texas. And one guy was, I guess it was the Unlimited, and the guy went cross-side on him, and the guy on the bottom, like on 2 or 3 different occasions, tried to do is it the buggy choke? By the way, I'd never recommend you guys do that because, although you can't slam in an IBJJF tournament, you might lock that on somebody, and guy might just be desperate enough. He might know how to stand up and base correctly, stands up, picks you up off the ground, and you're still holding the buggy choke, and he just decides to let his legs fall out under him accidentally and then slams you. Not a good thing, right? You don't want to put yourself in a vulnerable spot like that just because it's illegal to get slammed. You may accidentally get slammed and get hurt, so let's not do that, okay? But time-wise, if time is a limited commodity that we all have very little of, why are you going to waste it dabbling in a whole bunch of little things rather than going deep into one important major concept such as passing a guard or escaping mount or escaping seatbelt or escaping cross-side, or escaping knee on belly, or passing the guard, or playing guard, rather, right? There's only so much time. And you need to spend as much of it learning deeply major concepts. Now, there are some little concepts that are not that important, but to learn it and to learn it to a deep degree, you're going to have to spend a lot of time. So ask yourself, when you're spending time doing these good to know concepts, did you spend enough time learning the need to know concepts? Do you know those need to know concepts so well that you cannot possibly get better at them? You know, one of the problems that a lot of veteran black belts, you know, let's say ones with multiple stripes or even red and black or red and white on their belts, you know, one of the problems with a lot of them is that they get to black belt and they stop learning. They stop trying to refine what they do. One of the things that I admire so much about Grandmaster Rickson and Master Dave Kama is that they are always learning. They're always trying to find a way to refine the technique. Now, refine doesn't mean change, right? And people say Jiu-Jitsu has evolved. Well, you know, you can also devolve as well. And a lot of Jiu-Jitsu I contend today is a devolution, not an evolution. Evolution means that you think that it should be improving, but to devolve means that it's actually not improving. It's getting worse. And a lot of times it's because they think to be better, you need to change the technique rather than refine the technique. One of the things that Grandmaster Rickson is famous for saying, as told to me by Dave Kama, was that any technique that you do, if it cannot be done by an 8-year-old girl, it's not complete. So if it's at the point where an athlete can get it done, right? If you're an athlete, or if you're a wrestler, or if you're, 6 foot and 195 pounds and you're, 5% body fat and you're strong as an ox and flexible like a gymnast. If it takes you to do it, then the question is, okay, fine, he can do it, but can I do it? And if I cannot do it, then if that physical specimen is a professor, he's an instructor, then what his goal is to, let me figure out what I can do to this technique, or how can I make this technique so Ryan can do it, right? 5'4.5", 165, 54 years old. How can Ryan Young do this technique that I do so well, right? If it's something that cannot be done by me, no matter what kind of improvements you think you can make, then it might be a technique that might be thrown away, or somebody else needs to figure out how to make it better. Right? The reason why Kama Jiu-Jitsu and Rickson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu keeps improving is because Master Dave Kama, Grandmaster Rickson are always looking to make the technique easier for somebody smaller and weaker to be able to do. Because isn't that the whole premise behind Jiu-Jitsu, right? Jorge Gracie talks about how Elio and Carlos Gracie were tiny men, were small. Although Elio was taller than me, but I think he was probably lighter than me by about 20 pounds. And how Jiu-Jitsu is designed for the smaller, weaker person to use to equalize the playing field against somebody much bigger, faster, stronger, more athletic, who is untrained, right? It takes time to do all that. And if you're given limited time, it's best spent on those concepts that will make the biggest impact on your training, all right? So first thing is to narrow it down. We have a curriculum, and, we have thrown out, or we've ignored many concepts which we feel will not help you in a time-efficient manner. The next part of it is putting it together in a methodology, right? Learn this first, learn this next, learn this right after that, right? So what you're doing is you're prioritizing the most important things to learn, and then taking it up to the next step, which means the first important technique versus the next important technique versus the third most important technique, so on and so forth. And once we get into purple belt, then we're getting into the, it's good to know this, right? And provided you're very well rehearsed in the other concepts, then yeah, go ahead and learn it. But until you are, hold off on that for now and let's work on this. Why? Because time is limited. Right? You don't have a lot of time. You have a lot of things that you need to do, but also by prioritizing your jiu-jitsu like this, you will get to being really good much faster, right? If you try to learn 100 things at once, then it'll take you forever to learn that way. which is the whole circular method of teaching, which is what I contend is, if you have a curriculum, you can either do it linearly or circularly, right? Circular means you go lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5, lesson 6. You go up to 10 and you make that circle again, right? And, some schools will say, okay, you got to go through each class 4 times. And when you go through each class 4 times, then you're going to go up in rank. With us, we just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we often go back and make sure that we are still strong in the previous lessons. But you go 1, boom, 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 boom. That's linear. You learn the most important technique first. In that way, over the same amount of time, my contention is that you will be better. Thus preserving how important and how valuable your time is as a student. Then if you have this extra time because you've prioritized your time well, you can use it for other things. So in that example I mentioned earlier about having the 10 different black belts in a school, let's say you want to train twice a day, every day, well, let's call it 5 days a week. You want to train 10 classes a week and you're learning from 10 different black belts. You would be far better off to train just twice a week with 1 black belt than 10 times a week with 10 different black belts teaching you different things. It's true. And then you can use that other time, since you're only doing 2 classes a week because that instructor you want only teaches twice a week, then you can use the remaining days to develop deeper ties with your family, to get better in your career or your chosen field of vocation, right? Or you can pick up another hobby, like barbecue. Or grilling, like a lot of you guys see on my Instagram page, right? I grill and I grill more than I barbecue, but I do like to barbecue, but it just tries my patience at times. Managing a fire is tough. So that's really the point I was trying to make today. And I hope that I was able to get it into you to a way that you can understand it. And I hope it benefits you. You can always come into our studios. We have 3 of them right now. We have one in Flower Mound, Texas, which is Dallas-Fort Worth. We have one in Austin, Texas. And we have one in Laguna Hills, California, which we call Kama Jiu-Jitsu Irvine. You can also visit us at Kama Jiu-Jitsu Online, which has Dave Kama's curriculum in order and teaching you in the linear style that we teach our members here. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I hope this was valuable. And I hope you take it, and I hope that this helps to compress your time frame in success in jiu-jitsu. That's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye now.